record on this computer. Okay, for the sake of the recording, we have given our names, region, and community of faith, and we've done an introduction of the staff for the 3 regional councils. One thing that Lynn and I wanted to bring to your attention was the need for reporting. I know that it can be a bit of a challenge at different times, but we're asking that you would every 6 months give some indication to to Lynn or myself as to how things are going in the churches you're supervising. And if not every 6 months, well, every 6 months, please, but also at the end of your supervision. So when you're wrapping up, it not only tells us that someone else is appointed there, because communication sometimes with when people get appointed and the ongoing need for a pastoral charge supervisor gets a little muddy. So if you let us know how things are going at the end of your supervision, then we can also note that it is the end of your supervision and make sure we take your name off of that that need for pastoral charge supervisor in a particular community of faith.
And it's also just it can be extremely brief. I don't know, John, if you're going to talk about the form that's on the website, but you know, it can just be everything going fine, continuing to meet with the congregation. And if everything isn't going fine, you can certainly, you know, reach out to us as well. It doesn't always have to be through the report, but the report is a helpful check-in for us, rather than having to, you know, try to track everybody else down all the time.
Yep. So on the congregational support toolkits, one is for pastoral charge supervision, and you will see a link to the form there. Again, it's very basic. We try to keep it simple. It asks you what region, what your name is, who you're supervising, and then notes or comments. Yeah. So it shouldn't be tedious, and please do that. We talked about, sorry, are there any questions about that, the reporting? Bill, are you asking a question or wanting to? I see your finger up. You're muted. Yeah, Bill, you're muted if you can hear us. Not sure what's going on there. I'll ask to unmute. Maybe he'll see a button.
Okay.
There we go.
I think I'm unmuted now.
You're unmuted. Yes, we can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, I was just saying, to whom do we report that document?
If you fill it out online, it automatically gets sent to our database, and we're alerted that the information has come in.
Okay.
So if you're doing it not on the online form, then send it to Lynn or myself, depending on which region you're from.
And I should clarify for people in Horseshoe Falls as well, we have now have Judith Gilliland, who is helping to recruit pastoral charge supervisors. So she may be the person that has reached out and asked if you were willing to serve in a particular congregation. But that is the extent of her role, is just sort of reaching out to people and finding who is available. So the reports still come to me, not to Judith, or if you have any concerns, you contact me. She's just doing that very, very helpful job of reaching out. And of course, everybody says yes at the very first request, but it's still time consuming to reach out to people. So.
Thanks, Lynn. Okay, so one thing we want to remind you of that we've noticed with a number of different pastoral charges is that they're not necessarily getting their CRA filings in. So as pastoral charge supervisors, it would be great if you could check with the finance team or whatever, and just make sure that they are submitting the necessary documents. We hate to see charitable statuses lost because filings are not done properly.
And what I'm finding is that during the pandemic, sometimes, you know, paperwork just got fell behind. And there were changes in the filing dates, I think, during the pandemic, but they are back to the June date that you have to file the CRA report. And if by any chance a congregation has failed to file, they may have lost their charitable status and not even realize it. That happened with at least one congregation. So one of the ways they can check is to go online to the Canada Revenue charity listing, and it will come up and it will say revoked if they have failed to file. And then we need to get at it right away to get that corrected. And you would contact either John or I, and we can put you in touch with Eric Matheson or whoever might be able to help. But it is a very real concern.
So keep that in the back of your minds, please, and remind your the congregations you're supervising. Also, the self-assessments, they're supposed to be done yearly. And I know that when people look at the self-assessment document, they go, we don't, that's so much stuff, which is true, but it's all stuff that is in the best interest of the community of faith to either have completed or to work on completing for its own benefit. So again, if items are not done, don't panic. Just those are goals that you can accomplish in the next 6 months and work toward accomplishing all of those things in the self-assessment that are either best practices or government mandates or United Church mandates.
I describe that as the list of things you didn't know, because often there are government requirements that have changed in recent years, and congregations simply aren't aware of the policies that are required. And often for those government policies, we do have some resources on the websites as well. But yeah, what we don't want is for people to panic. This is to help you help the congregations identify what they need to take care of.
Yeah, and we get highlighted, or some things are highlighted to us every once in a while. Something that's not on there currently, I don't think, which we're going to be adding soon, is workplace safety documentation. There are government regulations around that, and you have to have somebody appointed as a workplace safety representative, and you have to do some basic checks and make sure documentation is posted and things like that. And that's all WSIB stuff. So that information will be coming out soon. Most churches, I think, haven't even thought about that. Some might have done some work in that area, but it is a government regulation. So we'll be sending out more information about that coming up.
And one of the other pieces on there that always amazes me is when we have congregations going to sell property, the number of deeds that are still in the names of the Methodist or Congregationalist and Presbyterian churches. So that's one of the other questions on that form is do you know where your deed is, and is it up to date? So again, these are things that that you can certainly encourage the trustees or the appropriate body to update so that it's ready to go if and when they ever need it. I think I see David has his hand up.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you. As John knows, I was dealing with that in the last 6 months with a congregation, and I can assure you it is not difficult to deal with. You just need a competent lawyer who works with John and it can be done very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, your title is straight. It's clear in the name of the denomination. We were dealing with two deeds that went back to 1874 and were in the name of the Methodist Church in Canada and dated from the founding of the congregation. So, but it was very simple to do. And by the way, the cost was under $500. So it's very simple to do.
Thanks, David. And the reality is, at some point, you're going to have to do it anyway. So you may as well do it sooner than later.
Yeah.
Okay, so General Counsel 44, there's one particular decision that we wanted to bring to your attention, and that is previously in the manual, ministry personnel, if they're at a church, were not required to attend congregational meetings, which seemed very odd because they're usually the ones who attend as well. But pastoral charge supervisors, we've told you in the past that you did not need to attend them because it wasn't a requirement. But that's changed. General Counsel 44, they are now requiring ministry personnel or an appointed person like a pastoral charge supervisor to attend annual meetings or any congregational meetings. The only exception we would have for you as pastoral charge supervisors is when it is a meeting called by the liaison to talk about accepting a call, then the liaison will represent the region in that case for the duly called meeting rather than the pastoral charge supervisor. So you'll not be required to attend that one. David, your hand is up again.
Just a point of clarification, John. If you're a pastoral charge supervisor of someone who is an admittand, would you be the one to attend as supervisor, or would you both be required to attend?
Yeah, that's a good question, David. It's a little complicated sometimes with admittance. So this is someone in the admissions process who is coming from another denomination, seeking admission into the United Church of Canada. Technically, the pastoral charge supervisor would be required to be there because an admittand doesn't have the standing of supervision. That's why we still need supervisors for communities of faith that have an admittand in place.
Same would be true for a candidate or student in the ministry personnel position. But remember too that you can also attend by phone or by Zoom. So often these congregational meetings we recognize happen after worship, and you may be in worship somewhere else. So first of all, we ask that the congregations have to be flexible because they need you there. And secondly, if it is more feasible for you to join electronically, then that is certainly acceptable as well.
Yeah, and in fact, sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
I was going to say this is going to be more of an issue probably around annual meeting time, when everybody wants to have their annual meetings at the same 3 weeks, 3 Sundays. So we're going to have to be flexible, and congregations are going to have to be flexible so that we can accommodate all of those needs.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so are there any questions about that? Anything we've discussed so far? No? Okay. I'd like to move to remuneration of pastoral charge supervisors. It's a bit of a larger discussion, so I want to share some information first. Lynn and I have been going over the handbook, and we've been talking with others about the need for regularizing things a little bit to make sure that we're all on the same page. And one of the things that we're doing is clarifying requirements for being a pastoral charge supervisor. So I'd just like to show you a document. I will share my screen. I think that's the right screen. Yep. Okay, so I'll make that a bit bigger. This is the handbook for pastoral charge supervisors. Lynn and I revamped it recently, and we added 2 sections which are being talked about at the Covenant Commission meetings. Western Ontario Waterways has already agreed. Where is that going here?
And it'll be on the agenda for ARW and Horseshoe Falls in December.
Oh, here it is. So qualifications and appointment are the 2 pieces. So ministry personnel already have this if they're active in ministry, but the standard for all people who are interacting with the potentially vulnerable people or with leaders in the church, as ministry personnel do, they need a police records check, they need racial justice training, and their boundaries training. And so in Western Ontario Waterways, we're going to be working into this, and I'll be discussing that with the WOW pastoral charge supervisors. And I guess, Lynn, you'll be talking to ARW and Horseshoe Falls about that. And it's not implemented yet, but it's getting there. Our suggestion is that if the supervisor is not currently serving in active ministry or is a lay person, the costs of these requirements will be paid by the regional council. Since you're doing work for the regional council, we don't want you to be burdened with any of the qualifications or the cost of qualifications. They just take a little bit of time. Neither are onerous. It's a video training, I think, and testing for both the racial justice and the boundaries.
David asked about what level of police record check. Anybody who is currently serving, it's a vulnerable sector police record check. I suspect that is what we would still ask for from all people involved, but that's a good question, David. And again, there are ministers who are not serving but are voluntary associate ministers, and they also keep up these credentials. So I think most of the people in the pool that we draw from, but again, for our lay pastoral charge supervisors in particular, that this may be something new for them to need to catch up on.
Yes, so we'll be in discussion with you about that. And then also appointment, pastoral charge supervisor, tripping over my words, my apologies. Pastoral charge supervisors will be appointed by the Covenant Commission. So this partially covers the fact that just because someone wants to serve as a pastoral charge supervisor doesn't necessarily mean that they will be asked to serve as a pastoral charge supervisor. They will be, it will be discussed by the Covenant Commission to make sure that everything seems like it's in alignment. And also, pastoral charge supervisors will continue once they're appointed until somebody else is called or appointed there, or we're asking that you would give at least 1 month's notice in writing to Lynn or myself that we can bring it to the Covenant Commissions if you are choosing to no longer serve in an appointment as a pastoral charge supervisor. So just a slight clarification.
And I would also note, I know in some situations I hear after the fact that pastoral charge supervisor wasn't going to be available because they were on vacation or whatever, and so they ask somebody to fill in for them. In this case, again, we would have to make sure it's somebody who's had the training, etc. But even as we grandfather this in, those people still have to be appointed by the Covenant Commission, because if there was ever a concern coming out of that meeting that they attended and they had not been appointed, then it could cause issues. These are one of those things where when things go south and we end up in the courts or whatever, and we have to show who was appointed, it has to be minuted that we appointed, you know, Dave Sherman to fill in for somebody when they were away. So please make sure we are looped into that.
Yeah, and like Lynn and I think it works the same in both, but if you contact us, then we'll make sure the approval gets done, but we can find somebody and get them appointed quicker than that approval could probably happen, which is fine. That's the understanding we have with the commissions. So
Yeah.
It's simple. If you can't make a meeting, we have to appoint the person that's going to represent you instead. So let us know.
And often if it's an emergency thing, you're ill or whatever, John or I can often step in too.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the one part. The other part is the remuneration part. And in all three regions and amongst staff, we've been talking about this. I just got to find my notes here. And trying to come up with something that seems reasonable. Other regional councils at times, or some of them are paying their pastoral charge supervisors. So what we're talking about is potentially, and I'll share my screen. So these are just some notes that I had in. This is what I brought to the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council Covenant Commission meeting. Remuneration means greater accountability. And also we questioned when this would start, and our suggestion is the information can start going out as soon as we have all the details finalized, which hopefully will be by the end of the year. And then it probably wouldn't begin until after the annual meeting in the spring of each of our regions. So there's some time for everyone to get used to it and to put in place the needed things. The idea for Western Ontario Waterways, and again, this is not passed and moving forward yet, it's still in discussion, but we felt a community of faith receiving supervision should be responsible for the payment of an honorarium that would be based on $30 an hour to the pastoral charge supervisor. So this includes meetings of the governing body, the trustees, the congregation, and the pastoral charge. In a multi-point pastoral charge, each community of faith is responsible independently. So pastoral charge supervisors are to submit their hours to the community of faith upon an agreed upon frequency. And our feeling is that in most cases, the pastoral charge who is without clergy or receiving reimbursement for some kind of short-term or long-term disability, that this cost should not be burdensome. And if it's anticipated to result in a financial difficulty for a community of faith, then a request can be made by the governing body to the Covenant Commission for an exception and further discussion. So that could mean assistance from the region, but it could also mean a discussion about the viability of the community of faith as a whole.
So please don't go back to the congregations that you are currently supervising and say, you're going to owe us $30 an hour starting in June. Give us time to have the decisions made. As I said, Antler River and Horseshoe Falls will be discussing it in December. And we want to finalize the details, and then we will start providing information to all congregations about this. But we wanted to let you know what we're thinking about and create an opportunity for feedback from you. I know in many cases, congregation or ministers see this as part of their, service to the wider church. We would say then, how you choose to use the remuneration you receive would be at your discretion. If you wanted to, donate it to M&S or something, then that's always your option. But we are also looking at the fact that we recognize this is a time commitment, and it also is a position that requires skills, wisdom, knowledge, experience, and we wish to honor that.
So it is expected and encouraged that supervision will take place by electronic means as much as possible, so that we're saving travel time, because we are not talking about paying for travel time, just supervision time. And also because both the General Council and our tri-regional, our tri-regions are looking at reducing our environmental footprint as much as we can. And so all of our meetings, as much as possible, are going to be electronic moving forward. So you're encouraged to do that too. A reminder then also for the communities of faith that anything over $500 currently, according to Revenue Canada, means and they need to submit a T4A. And as Lynn said, if you feel this is a donation of your time, feel free to donate the money back to the community of faith or to some other charity or whatever you want to support. But it should be consistent that all pastoral charges, all pastoral charge supervisors get paid for their time. We don't want to start having fights over, no, we want this pastoral charge supervisor because they don't charge money, but this one does. So, you know, that kind of stuff. So it needs to be consistent.
I see Grant put a comment in the chat about a burden to congregations that are with a vacancy. Well, again, if they're in vacancy, they are paying a minister at this time. So if they are struggling to pay the pastoral charge supervisor, then I think it's a bigger question about viability and whether they would be able to afford a minister if they can't afford the supervisor. We also are recognizing we have more and more what we're calling lay-led congregations where they have no realistic expectation of being able to hire a minister for what they could afford. And they also, you know, maybe have stopped, they are not in active search anymore. So in those cases too, we're looking at the pastoral charge supervisor is a long-term commitment. You know, Gordon Crossfield, you could comment on that because I know there's congregations that you've been with for several years. And so this is a way of recognizing as well that our structures within the United Church are shifting and we are seeing more of these lay-led congregations. And so how do we maintain our responsibility as regional council to ensure that they have the support of a pastoral charge supervisor, but also recognizing that we have a limited number of people who are available to do this. And you're correct, David, supervision is not pulpit supply. That's why we have the handbook as well to clarify for you and the congregation that you are not there to do their pulpit supply or their pastoral care or their sacraments. You are there to work with the council or the board to help them make sure they have things in place to cover those needs. If you know, you are not serving in another place and you choose to do pulpit supply for them for one Sunday here or there, that's a completely separate thing outside of your responsibilities as pastoral charge supervisor.
Yeah, in a case like that, you would get the pulpit supply rate.
Exactly.
Bonnie, I also see your comment, and that's an important one is too. We recognize that it's not the same for everybody around having internet access and whatnot. So we do the best you can. I guess what we're trying to say is, in as much as possible, use electronic means.
Yeah, I've recently done a few where somebody puts their cell phone on speaker in the middle of the table. And that's how I have participated in the meetings. I think I wouldn't do that for every meeting. It was a congregation that I'd already met in person, but I think it would certainly be an option for some of your meetings and especially the more routine ones.
I see another comment from you, David. Did you want to expand on that? You're muted.
Interesting. I pressed the space bar. It didn't want to work.
Oh.
Strange. Anyway, I'm working in a congregation where I am the supervisor, but do not do anything for Sunday supply. I do not do sacraments, nothing. But what I do, and there is someone who is doing the pulpit supply, and between the two of us, we've come up with this term that they are the worship leader, and I do what we've come up with the term ministry of governance.
Okay.
And that's a really helpful term for us, at least, to divide, okay, who does what? Yeah, I chair the church council because that's what they want me to do. But they are a corresponding member, but it's just a helpful way to talk about, dare I use that lovely Canadian term, division of powers.
That's true. I understand that, David. And there is a recognition, and it's important that the congregation recognizes the division of that power, if you will, or authority. But there are some pastoral charge supervisors who are also filling in as pulpit supply, which is fine. But yes, the congregation needs to understand that it's two different roles.
And if while you're there, because something you said triggered this for me, if you notice that they have the same person doing their pulpit supply every week, that might be an opportunity to encourage them to talk to McCall Cottrell about whether that person should be in an appointment instead. So sometimes congregations don't realize that might be important to move towards a supply appointment or something like that if they are already using the same person on a regular basis.
Yeah, one of the standards we use for that is the LLWL policy, where it's no more than 3 in a row and no more than 12 in a year. If it is more than that, then they should be looking at making it an appointment of some kind. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just curious about any other thoughts about pastoral charge supervisors being remunerated for their time, and if you think the rate is fair, or what your thoughts are here. Colin, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I've thought for quite a while, and I think, I'm basically, reiterating what Lynn has already said. But to me, it's not a matter of if I'm getting any extra money, although, certainly that would be nice. But I think some of these congregations that are really relying on long-term pastoral care and not really working towards calling a minister or asking to have one appointed, there should be some accountability. Sorry, I got my microphone up over my head. There should be some accountability for that. There should be a cost, and if they can't even cover that, then, as has been said, there really needs to be a discussion about, how can they carry on and continue doing, being a viable congregation.
Right. Thanks, Colin. Judy, I see your comment. It's not our responsibility to work with the pastoral charge to put their profile on Church Hub. No, as a pastoral charge supervisor, that's true. You should have some knowledge about the community of faith profile, though, and you might be walking through that process with the congregation, or at least encouraging them, because it'll come up at governing body meetings. But it would be the job of the liaison to make sure that the profiles and everything they need is posted on Church Hub.
Right. And
Judy,
sorry, John.
Sorry, Judy, you have a comment on that?
Yeah. So basically, these congregations are working with pulpit supply, not necessarily United Church pulpit supply, and are quite happy with pulpit supply, and really never plan to look for ministers, so have no real desire or impetus to finish their put anything on Church Hub. And because the liaison in WOW don't come into play until they're into search. If they're not looking for search, then they have no one to give them that incentive or cheerleading to get that work done.
Right, and that's where we're finding those are congregations that basically we're calling the lay-led congregations. But there is an expectation that all congregations, regardless of whether they're in search or not, will do their profile and update it on an annual basis. That's actually a manual requirement. We haven't been putting that to the forefront because the last few years congregations have had more challenging situations to deal with. But our hope is that in 2023, we can get the majority of congregations to do their worksheets, complete their profile, and have it ready, because we require it as background for just about every decision that's made, not just search. If they want to do something with property, if they want to access restricted funds, if they are looking at redevelopment, grant applications, all of that is, we ask for their profile as background information. And it is an excellent discernment tool, especially for those congregations that are basically making a decision that we want to stay as a congregation with pulpit supply. So that is another opportunity, I guess, to show them that it is a helpful tool for them. Regardless, it's not just for search purposes. Like the Act was.
I agree with that, but the problem is that they need a liaison to push them in that direction.
So that's not, the liaison doesn't do the church profile with the congregations. It's always the responsibility of the board. If they need help, then John or I could maybe find someone within the Covenant Commission or our resource pool to work with them on it, if that would be helpful. But the liaisons really don't, they aren't trained to work on the profile piece.
Yeah, I should have clarified that, Judy. I concentrated on the putting on Church Hub part, not on the profile part. But yeah, the liaison only enters the picture if they're going to be in search. So
so in this region, in other regions across Canada, they are involved from the very start. So
yes,
that's something
true.
to look at.
Yeah.
Well, that's partly because of the way we're structured. In a lot of regions, the pastoral relations minister also does the congregational support piece. And so the positions are combined. In our regions, we have separated pastoral relations from the rest of the congregational support ministries. And so that is why that piece is separated as well. It's just based on how the regions are structured.
Yeah, so a quick summary there would be, as pastoral charge supervisors, please encourage the congregations to do their community of faith profile. But I wouldn't get into big fights about it. I would just bring it up every once in a while to make sure they're reminded that they're supposed to have it done. And the day is coming, as we've discussed in, I think, all the commissions, that if you are requesting something of the region, like a grant or redevelopment or renovation or any of these kinds of things, it's coming where the first thing the Covenant Commission will ask for is your profile. So if you don't have your profile done, you've got a lot of extra work to do at that time.
And John and I just updated the worksheets and the handbook, and we have streamlined a lot of it, and it is hopefully more logical in its layout. And it really is intended to be a discernment tool, and we'd like to see congregations get in the practice of updating it and approving it every year at their annual meeting, and then they've got it ready to go for the rest of the year. So that's, I think, a practice that they could get into.
Okay, if we're okay with that, then we're at 7:53, so we got 7 minutes left. Mark, Rutledge, you had asked if we're going to get a chance to comment on the PCS handbook. By all means, let's hear it.
I haven't seen it, so I just wondered when it gets, is it out actually on the
Yeah, the current version has been out for a long time. It's on the congregational toolkits.
Okay,
uh,
so that
in the-
includes the additions you were noticed, like, I
No.
guess, what, yeah, well, that's what, one thing I've noticed, just what you've introduced is there seems to be a kind of step up of pastoral charge supervision from, and so that sort of counteracts the idea or balances out the notion of remuneration. Because, and so I'm just wanting to think about that a little bit. Because it seems to me like even just the requirement to have racial justice training and boundary training imagines a more involved relationship with the communities of faith that at least I've supervised. And I'm not sure I would want to talk about that a bit first before I would agree to that, because obviously I have my training and all that, but it just kind of imagines a more involved relationship. I mean, in my experience have been as a pastoral charge supervisors, I'm there to kind of be the eyes and ears of region or presbytery before that, and just to make sure everything's being, relatively done according to United Church policy. But I wasn't imagining myself that involved with the actual life of the congregation. But it seems to me, with what I've seen tonight, that you're imagining a greater involvement on the part of the pastoral charge supervisor. That requires more time and maybe a bit more energy. And I'm just got to think about that a little bit. And is that what you want to do? I guess is that the vision of where pastoral charge supervision goes from here?
Yeah. So my initial thoughts on that, Mark, and thank you for your comments, are that we're not adding any work or expectations to the pastoral charge supervisor when it comes to their involvement in a community of faith, except that the new general council requirement is attendance at congregational meetings or annual meetings. So that will take some more time. The rest is just about qualifications when it comes to our work with communities of faith. I think we need to be aware of the racial justice and the boundaries type training so that we can lead by example in the best way possible. So that's about when you might be interacting with a governing body. And again, the police records check and stuff like that. This is all becoming more of a standard where we're looking out for the safety of both the pastoral charge supervisor and the congregation in case there's any kind of allegation or anything like that.
Because when you're in this role, you are seen as an authority figure. And you're right, you are there representing regional council in a way and providing guidance on polity. You also serve as a trustee, which is a piece that congregations often are surprised to hear about, and so are pastoral charge supervisors. But so I think it's like those other roles where whether we feel that we have special authority or not, we might be perceived in an authority role. And so that is why it's important to have those trainings and the police record check. But no, we are not envisioning extra responsibilities. And I had someone ask me about, did they have to attend a search team committee meetings and those sorts of things? No, it's the governing body and congregation and trustees are the three areas of responsibility.
No, the pastoral charge supervisor is not required to chair, but they can chair the trustees, to your question, David. Same as ministry personnel. They're not necessarily the chair, but they are a trustee. But they're able to chair. Okay, so Lynn already mentioned the community of faith profile. We did revamp it. We tried to simplify it, and we took some pieces out just to try and make it easier. Again, it's a discernment tool, so there's certain things that need to be done for us to be able to understand who you are, as well as if you're in a search, then your ability to afford what you're saying you can afford, and that it matches up with your living faith story. So encouragement to do that, community of faith profile. Always look to the website and get the current documents. If you're updating yours, just don't grab the old ones and plug in new data because they're different now. So get the latest version on the website always.
And we also added a preparing to search document for your congregations. Like we are referring them to it when they come to us that they're in search, but just so that you know, it's also there, and it lays out the steps for the search process in a page and a half or so. So it is hopefully going to help clarify some of those questions, such as when does a liaison step in, what is involving Covenant Commission, and what is involving Pastoral Relations and Human Resources Commissions. And always, John and I are here to answer questions, or if you have concerns or you want to bounce something off of us.
Okay, so for those of you who may have arrived after we started, I can't recall if there were any, but if you could put your name, your regional council, and the community of faith that you are from in the chat, that would be appreciated. Then we have an attendance record. And in the probably 40 seconds we have left, here's my simple question. What supports do you need? Are there supports that you feel you need that you don't have access to currently?
And if you think of them later, you can again send us an email.
Yeah.
And let us know. Because the one thing I want to say to everybody is thank you. We have about 30% or more of our congregations are in need of pastoral charge supervisors. And so they would not be able to function as congregations without your gifts and skills being shared with them. So thank you very much for doing this on top of everything else that you are already doing.
Absolutely. I echo that very sentiment. Well, if there's nothing else, then be reminded that we are always here to support you. So feel free to reach out if need be. And if you have any questions about your supervision itself or any challenges that come up, again, that's what we're here for. So don't hesitate to give us a call or send us an email. Otherwise, on behalf of Lynn and I, thank you very much for attending tonight. And I hope you've gathered some new information, and we'll see you again. And I think we're meeting, what, twice a year is what we agreed upon. So we'll put out a note for another one in about 5 months so that you'll have it in your calendar for 6 months from now. All right. Thank you, folks. Have a very good night. Go with God's blessings.
Have a good evening.